Okay, guys, maybe you have heard this book from your teacher, or some of it, or maybe even the entire thing. But we have decided that we didn't really get to fully finish this nonfiction unit. So we're going to read it to you again, and I'm going to talk about some text features that are found within nonfiction, just as a reminder as we go into this nonfiction unit, because you're going to have to be able to identify the differences between fiction and nonfiction, not just that nonfiction is true, but there are other things in nonfiction that make it nonfiction. So we're going to talk about that. So this book is called Bee. So when I first open the book, I see something called the table of contents. And what the table of contents does is it kind of tells chapters and tells you what page you can find them on so that you can easily find that information. Because sometimes you are sorry about that. Sometimes you are doing research on something and you don't want to read the whole nonfiction book. So maybe you just need to know how bees are special. Maybe your teacher asks you that. So instead of having to read the whole book, you would go, oh, bees are special. That's on page 26. And so you would just turn to page 26. Okay, so that's the table of contents. Okay, so here on this first part is what we call our heading, okay? So we have titles, which is our title on the front, and then within the book you have headings, okay? So what are bees? It's like a miniature title, okay? So it just tells what that section is going to be about. So what are bees? Bees are furry insects. They have 6 legs and 2 pairs of wings. They flap their wings so quickly that they make a buzzing sound. And I'm noticing on this page, I see a couple of things. First of all, I see a picture of a bee, and it's not just a picture, it's a photograph. And so nonfiction usually has photographs, not drawings. And so that's something that can tell you the difference. What I also notice is that this photograph has words in little bubbles that point. And what those are called labels. So just like when you go to the grocery store and you are looking for a specific type of apple, because there's a lot of different apples, they put a little label below the apples. So these are like labels for the parts of the bee. So we've got the wings and we have the legs. One other thing I noticed here is that this word is bolded, okay? Bolding a word means that it's important. And so this bolded word tells me that there's probably a definition or something that tells me, what does this word even mean, insects? And so if you have a bolded word, that usually means you have something called a glossary. Glossaries are usually found at the back of books. And look it, I have the glossary at the back of the book. And look, there's the word insect, small creature with 6 legs. So that's how I know what they're talking about. Because nonfiction is harder because it has vocabulary. That's a vocabulary word. Maybe you don't know what insect means. And so because it's bolded, you can always look it up in the back of the book in the glossary. It's like a miniature dictionary. So it tells you what words mean. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading. There are different types of bees. Mother bees are called queens. Male bees are called drones. And look, that word's bolded. It's that dark bolded black, so I know I can look it up. There are also worker bees. They all have different jobs to do. So I'm going to go back to my glossary and look and see what drones are. So look, it says a drone is a male bee. So it means it's a boy. Okay. Bees have hairs on their bodies. The hair give the bees their brown and yellow stripes. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Bees have 2 large eyes. They can see up, down, backward, and forward at the same time. They also have 3 small eyes. They have two feelers for touching and smelling. So again, here's a photograph. Here's another photograph, and look at, there's those labels. We've got eye and feelers, right? And then another bolded word. So what does feeler even mean? Feeler means two long, narrow tubes that stick out from the head of an insect. They may be used to feel, smell, or even hear. That's crazy. Oh, here's another heading. So the chapter has changed. How big are bees? So this is going to be all about their size. Bumblebees are about the size of a grape. Honeybees are about the size of a peanut. Queen bees are the biggest bees. Workers are the smallest in the nest. There's only one queen in each nest. And look, it's pointing to, it's labeled specifically which one is the queen bee. Oh, we've got another heading. Where do bees live? Bumblebees live together. They live in a nest that sits in long grass or underground. Honeybees live together in a nest in a hollow tree or log. Sometimes people keep honeybees in a wood hive. So look at those beehives. And it has the word hollow. And where would you look again if you're not sure what the word hollow means? Because it's a bolded vocabulary word. You're right. You'd look in the glossary. So again, I'm going to turn back to the glossary. I'm going to find the word hollow. The word hollow means a hollow tree is usually a dead tree and the trunk is empty inside. So, story from the Marsh family. One time, Mr. Cody and I were hiking out in the mountains, and there was a hollow log laying out in the like on the pathway, right? And we stepped over the log, and lo and behold, you know what was in that hollow log? Bees, and not just any bees. They were what are they called? They're very aggressive bees. Hornets. Oh my goodness. They came out and they swarmed us. We had to run out of the mountains. I dropped my glasses so I couldn't see. We even had to go to the hospital because we had gotten stung so many times. Is that not crazy? Oof. It's kind of changed me wanting to go in the mountains. But that was a long time ago, so I need to venture there again. Anyway, so be careful of trees that have hollow openings because, or hollow insides, because you never know when something is going to come after you, right? Okay, let's keep going. All right, next heading, how are bees born? In the spring, the queen mates with a male bee called a drone. She then lays her eggs in special places called cells. Cells are inside the nest. And there's some more of those bolded words you can look up in the glossary. After 3 days, the babies hatch out. They are called larvae. The larvae are small and white. They have no eyes, no legs, and no wings. So they look, yuck. It looks kind of like a little jelly blob. So this is called a larva. When it says larvae, that means more than one. So larva is one, larvae is more than one. Soon the larvae turn into young bees called pupae. So remember, pupa is one, pupae is more than one. They begin to turn into adult bees. After 2 weeks, the new bees push to the top of the cells off and crawl out. The young bees' bodies are very soft. They soon get harder. Most of the new bees are worker bees. So you need those worker bees to collect that honey for the queen, right? Here's another heading. What do bees eat? And look at this pretty photograph of a bee. And look, it's got labels. It's got the tongue and pollen that are labeled on the bee. Bees eat the pollen from flowers. They bring juice called nectar from the flowers to the nest. They make it into honey, which they eat. Some more bolded words for the glossary. When larvae, which means more than one, are in the cells, they need to eat and grow. Worker bees feed them honey and pollen. There's another heading. Which animal attacks bees? Some birds eat bees. Queen and worker bees will sting if they are angry or frightened. Their stripes warn other animals to stay away. Look at that bird eating that bee. Some worker bees guard the entrance of the nest. They fight bees from other nests if they come to steal honey. Ooh. Here's another heading. How do honeybees move? Bees have strong wings. They can fly a long way to look for food. When it is hot, they fan their wings to keep the nest cool. When bees land on a flower, they crawl inside it to suck up the nectar. They also collect pollen. Their feelers help them to smell and taste. So the feelers, I don't know, they remind me like butterflies have feelers that do the same thing. How long do bees live? Queen bees live for up to 6 or 7 years. Most of the bees stay in their nests through the winter. The worker bees will die during the next summer. Worker bees push the male drones out of the nest in the fall and keep them from coming back in. The drones die because they have no food to eat. That's interesting. Out with the old and with the new. What do honeybees do? So again, another heading. When there are too many bees in the nest, the queen takes a big group called a swarm to find a new nest. Another bee becomes the queen in the old nest. So I can actually just tell what the word swarm means based on the words. The queen bee takes a big group, so it's a big group of bees. Gardeners like worker bees because they take pollen from flower to flower. This makes new seeds so new flowers grow. Many people also like to eat the honey that bees make. Do you guys like honey? We love honey. I love honey in tea. We like honey on our toast and honey with our peanut butter on our sandwiches. We love it. How are bees special? Bees have long hair on their back legs that work like baskets. They put pollen from flowers into the baskets. Their legs look like yellow balloons. Look at that. That bee right there, little sack. Bees do a special dance to show other bees where there are lots of flowers. Too funny. I'm sure you guys have seen animals that dance to try and impress the other animals. Thinking about bees, there's another heading. Why are bees so busy? What jobs do worker bees do? Would you like to be a male drone? This person is collecting honey from the beehive. Why do you think beekeepers wear gloves and a veil? Why do they puff smoke at the bees? Why do you think they do all that? Probably for protection. Okay, so that looks like it's the end of our book. The last thing that they have on this page is a diagram, right? It has a bee that's been labeled with all the different parts, okay, and they called it a bug map. There's that glossary that I was talking about at the end. There's all those bolded words, and it tells what the words mean. Sometimes it's good to read these ahead of time so that you know when you're reading what the words mean. And then the last thing that a lot of books include in nonfiction is called an index, and it's just a quick way to find specific words. So like if you only want to know about eggs in terms of bees, you would find eggs on page 12 and 24, and so you would look on those pages to see if there's any information that you need. Okay, so nonfiction, okay, we have our title, we have the table of contents, which tells you the headings and what page to find them on. Here's a heading. Here's a photograph with labels. And finally, we have bolded words that you find at the back of the book. In the glossary. And then there's also an index with keywords and page numbers to find those keywords. All right, guys, great job listening.